Welcome back to the channel, Sinister Stories. Tonight, we delve back into the haunting hours of the night shift, a time when shadows dance, whispers echo in empty halls, and the line between reality and nightmare blurs. Those who dare to work while the world sleeps often find themselves face to face with the unexplainable. They are the silent guardians, the unseen protectors, and sometimes, the unwilling witnesses to horrors that most can't even imagine. Tonight we share 3 chilling tales from those who dared to work the night shift. Stories of ghostly apparitions, unexplained events, and the bone-chilling realization that they are not alone. So, turn down the lights, turn up the volume, and prepare to be terrified because these are the sinister stories of the night shift. Our story takes us to the desolate outskirts of a forgotten town, where an old abandoned factory stands shrouded in darkness. Once a bustling hub of industry, it now lay silent, its rusted gates a testament to time's relentless march. Our storyteller, a seasoned security guard named Frank, had heard the whispers. Locals claimed the factory was haunted, a playground for restless spirits. Frank, a skeptic by nature, brushed off these stories as mere folklore. He had walked these empty halls for months, his only companions the shadows and the wind whistling through broken windows. One night, however, Frank's skepticism would be shattered. It was a night like any other. The rain beat hard against the windows, the wind howled, and the old factory groaned. Frank, stationed by the main gate, made his rounds, his heavy footsteps echoing in the silence. As he rounded a corner, his flashlight beam fell upon a sight that stopped him dead in his tracks. At the end of the corridor, shrouded in a hazy light, stood a figure. It was the silhouette of a man, tall and imposing, his form shifting and flickering. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through Frank. He froze, his breath caught in his throat, his flashlight trembling in his hand. The figure began to move, gliding silently towards Frank. It didn't walk, it floated, as if carried by an unseen current. As the figure drew closer, Frank could make out more details. The man was dressed in what appeared to be an old worker's uniform, his clothes tattered and torn. His face, however, remained obscured, hidden in the shadows. The figure stopped a few feet from Frank, its presence radiating a bone-chilling cold. Frank, his heart pounding, tried to speak, but no sound escaped his lips. The figure extended a hand towards Frank, its touch sending a jolt of fear through his entire body. The ghostly hand seemed to pass right through Frank, its touch leaving a trail of ice. And then, as quickly as it appeared, the figure vanished, fading into the shadows. Frank, shaken to his core, stumbled back, his back hitting the cold concrete wall. He fumbled for his radio, his hands trembling, his voice a choked whisper as he called for backup. The other guards, arriving at the scene, found Frank in a state of shock. He recounted his experience, his voice trembling, his eyes wide with terror. They searched the factory from top to bottom but found no trace of the ghostly figure. Some dismissed Frank's story as a hallucination, a trick of the mind. Others, however, couldn't shake off the feeling that something wasn't right. The temperature seemed to drop whenever they spoke of the figure, and an unnerving silence seemed to blanket the area. Frank, forever changed by his encounter, never returned to the factory. The experience had left an indelible mark on his psyche, a chilling reminder of the unseen forces that lurk in the shadows. The old factory remained abandoned, a decaying monument to its past, haunted by the ghosts of its past and the chilling tale of the security guard who dared to confront the unknown. Our next story takes us to the sterile halls of Mercy Hospital, where a young nurse named Sarah found herself facing a different kind of horror. Sarah was a seasoned night shift worker, accustomed to the hushed whispers and the rhythmic beeping of machines that served as the soundtrack to her nights. Mercy Hospital, with its long corridors and flickering lights, had a history, whispered among the staff in hushed tones. It was said that the spirits of patients past, unable to find peace, wandered the halls, their presence marked by cold spots, disembodied voices, and fleeting glimpses of shadows. Sarah, a pragmatist, paid little heed to these rumors. She had seen enough human suffering to be skeptical of ghost stories. One night, however, Sarah's skepticism would be put to the test. It was during her rounds on the 3rd floor, a wing notorious for its eerie silence and oppressive atmosphere. As Sarah moved from room to room, checking on patients, she couldn't shake off the feeling that she was being watched. The air grew cold, and a prickling sensation crawled down her spine. As she passed by room 302, a room unoccupied for years, she heard it, a low, guttural moan coming from within. The sound, filled with pain and despair, sent a chill down Sarah's spine. Curiosity and a sense of duty compelled her to investigate. She slowly pushed open the door to room 302, her heart pounding in her chest. The room was dimly lit, the air thick with dust and the stale scent of disinfectant. Moonlight spilled through the cracks in the blinds, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. In the center of the room, a figure seemed to materialize from the darkness. It was the spectral form of an elderly woman, her skin pale and translucent, her eyes burning with a cold, ethereal light. She reached out toward Sarah, her voice a raspy whisper that seemed to claw at the edges of Sarah's sanity. "Help me," she pleaded, her voice filled with an anguish that chilled Sarah to the bone. Sarah, though paralyzed with fear, felt a surge of sympathy for the spectral figure. She took a step forward, her hand outstretched, only to have the figure recoil with a gasp. Her form flickered, like a candle flame about to be extinguished, and then she was gone, leaving Sarah alone in the cold, silent room. Sarah, shaken but determined to understand, began to investigate the history of room 302. She learned that the room had once been occupied by a woman who had died under mysterious circumstances, her pleas for help ignored by the staff. Night after night, Sarah was haunted by the spectral image of the woman and the chilling plea for help. She tried to help the spirit find peace, even going so far as to contact a local paranormal investigator. But the hauntings continued, each encounter leaving Sarah more terrified and drained. The once skeptical nurse was now a believer, forever changed by her encounters with the supernatural. She continued to work at Mercy Hospital, but the fear never truly left her eyes. A constant reminder of the night she came face to face with the restless spirits that roamed the halls of Mercy Hospital. Our final story takes us to the brightly lit aisles of a 24-hour convenience store on a desolate highway, where a young man named David found himself trapped in a nightmare. David, a college student working the graveyard shift, thought he'd seen it all. From truckers hopped up on coffee to the occasional drunk looking for a late-night snack, but nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to experience. It started subtly, a cold spot near the beer cooler, a magazine inexplicably knocked off the rack, the faint scent of sulfur that seemed to linger near the cash register. David initially dismissed these incidents as his imagination running wild, but as the night wore on, the incidents grew stranger, more sinister. One night, while stocking shelves, he could have sworn he saw a figure lurking in the aisles, a tall, shadowy figure that seemed to vanish whenever he turned his head. The feeling of being watched intensified, a constant presence that sent shivers down his spine. Then came the nightmares. Vivid, terrifying dreams of being chased through the store by an unseen entity, the aisles transformed into endless corridors of fear, the fluorescent lights flickering ominously. David's once peaceful sleep was now plagued by these nocturnal terrors, leaving him exhausted and on edge. The line between dreams and reality began to blur. One particularly slow night, David found himself alone, the silence of the store broken only by the hum of the refrigerators. As he was counting the cash, he noticed something strange in the reflection of the security camera monitor. Standing in the aisle behind him, partially obscured by the shadows, was a figure. It was tall and gaunt, its features indistinguishable, but its eyes, glowing with a malevolent red light, seemed to pierce through the darkness, locking onto David's gaze. Terror, raw and consuming, gripped David. He spun around, but the figure was gone. He searched the store, his heart pounding in his chest, but found no trace of the entity. The encounter left him shaken, convinced that he was dealing with something sinister. Fear became David's constant companion. Every creak of the floorboard, every whisper of the wind against the windows, sent his pulse racing. He tried to rationalize his experiences, but deep down, he knew that something was terribly wrong. Desperate for answers, David began researching local legends, scouring old newspaper clippings for any mention of strange occurrences at the store. He learned that years ago, the store had been the site of a brutal robbery homicide, the victims' souls never finding peace. David, armed with this newfound knowledge, realized that he wasn't dealing with a simple haunting, but something far more malevolent, something that fed on fear, something that wanted him gone. David, his spirit broken, quit his job the next day, vowing never to return. The convenience store remained open, a beacon of fluorescent light in the darkness, but for David, it would forever be a place of terror, a stark reminder of the night he came face to face with the unknown. Thank you for joining us on this chilling exploration of night shift horrors. Remember, the next time you find yourself alone in the dark, listening to the silence, that you may not be as alone as you think. If you enjoyed tonight's stories, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Sinister Stories for more spine-chilling tales from the dark corners of our world. And if you have a terrifying night shift story of your own, we want to hear it. Share your experience in the comments below and let's keep the chills coming. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you won't miss our next upload, where we'll delve into even more unsettling encounters with the unknown. Until then, sweet dreams, or should I say, sleep tight.